tried taking digestive enzymes to help your IBS? We naturally make enzymes as part of our digestive process, which breaks down fats and carbohydrates and protein from our food. If you're not producing enough of these certain enzymes, it could be contributing to your bloating and gas buildup. And the issue is that sometimes when we take supplements, they also contain things that might make your symptoms worse, so it's not always a good idea to supplement. In this episode of the Inside Knowledge podcast, I'll talk through the different types of digestive enzymes we make, why you might be low in them, and what the options are for improving the way you break down your food. Welcome to episode 67 of the Inside Knowledge podcast. I'm Anna Mapson. The reason I'm talking about digestive enzymes today is that they are one of the main parts of our chemical digestion. So we have like a mechanical digestion process by using our teeth to crunch up the food, using our stomach, which is a muscle, which is also mashing up the food and mixing it all together, mixing it with all the juices. We also have chemical digestion, started by our stomach acid, and then the enzymes are compounds that help us break down our food so that we can better absorb them, get them into our cells, and actually start to use the key nutrients from our food. In this session, I'm going to talk about the different types of enzymes, like where they're produced. I'll talk a bit about why you might have issues creating digestive enzymes. And then also a little bit about specific supplements that you can take, looking at different types that might be helpful, when you should take digestive enzymes and when you definitely should not take them. So, to get into the first section, digestive enzymes are made all along the digestive process, really. Even starting in the mouth, we have something called salivary amylase, which starts to break down carbohydrates, and there is some breakdown of fats as well in the mouth. Then we also have digestive breakdown in the stomach, so we have gastric enzymes. Then we also have some coming from the pancreas, pancreatic enzymes. And then finally into the small intestine, we've got brush border enzymes that are produced as the food is getting broken down. It's already been mashed up. So starting with the salivary amylase or the saliva enzymes, this is partly why it's so important to chew your food up. So the first stage of digestion is really happening when you're crunching up the food with your teeth, but also there's a chemical breakdown with the saliva. You might even try this, like if you have a mouthful of rice or white bread and you chew it up and chew it up and chew it up, what you will find is it can actually end up tasting quite sweet, and that is because your saliva is starting to break down the glucose and extract it from the grains. In your stomach, we also have some gastric enzymes, and one of the key important ones I want to mention is pepsin, which starts to break down protein. So this is where our protein digestion begins. When the food gets into the stomach, your stomach cells release something called pepsinogen, and then when that mixes with stomach acid, the hydrochloric acid, it activates pepsinogen into pepsin, which is the active component that starts to break down proteins from your food. Now, remember this because I'm going to come back to it a little bit at the end when I talk about whether we should be taking digestive enzymes that include pepsin or that include hydrochloric acid, because it is important. But just for now, I want to explain all the little bits. Then, moving into the small intestine, then we also have pancreatic enzymes, which are delivered to the small intestine, and these are a range of different enzymes. So they're proteolytic ones, which start to digest proteins. We also have amylase breaking down carbs and lipase breaking down fats. So these come into the small intestine where the environment is more alkaline than in the stomach acid. Sometimes when you take lipase, it is actually denatured by stomach acid, and so our body has a way of delivering it to the small intestine, but it's not so acidic, it's more alkaline. And then also in the small intestine, you have these little villi that stick out into the tube of your small intestine. Brush border enzymes are produced right at the coalface where the stuff is happening, and these break down lactase, and also maltase and sucrase, which are other types of sugars. So that's a very high level little overview of your chemical digestion process. The reasons why you might not have enough of specific enzymes depend a little bit on what type of enzymes you don't have. It's unlikely to be all of them. So for example, if you're not breaking down carbohydrates very well, it could be down to the production in the mouth. Like, are you actually chewing food? Is it staying in your mouth long enough to get broken down by the saliva? And then also the pancreatic enzymes, the amylase that's produced there. With fats, again, it can be down to your saliva, it could be down to the small intestine in the pancreas. And then with protein, it's more about whether your stomach acid is high enough, because that is really key to breaking down proteins, because if you don't have high enough stomach acid, it's not going to activate the pepsinogen into pepsin. So those are kind of reasons why you might not be producing the enzymes. One of the main reasons would be your pancreas isn't functioning properly. Now, that could be down to all number of things. It could be down to an inflamed pancreas, that's pancreatitis, could even be pancreatic cancer. And a lot of people I work with, this is their ultimate fear, because that is one of the cancers that unfortunately is often discovered quite late and there's very little that can be done. So people do tend to panic about it. However, these things can definitely be shown up in scans. And so if you've got a concern about this, it's really important to go speak to your doctor, get it checked out. Other reasons why you might not be producing enough of these enzymes is that you've actually got microbes in the small intestine that are interfering with the brush border production of enzymes. This can happen if you've had a stomach bug or some kind of gastric bug, because things like lactase deficiency, so lactase is the sugar that's breaking down your lactose, and lactose intolerance can actually be worsened after you've had a stomach bug. It can come and go, and you can actually get over that kind of lactose intolerance in time, rather than it being a genetic thing that you don't have enough of this lactase production. There are some cases where people will have SIBO, which is small intestine bacterial overgrowth, and it can interfere with the production of these brush border enzymes, making them more susceptible to things like lactose intolerance, to what's sometimes called sucrase isomaltase deficiency. So that is your inability to break down sucrose and maltase, which are these two sugars that are disaccharides, and they're broken apart at the brush border. If you don't have the enzyme to do that, then you can start to get bloating, gas, diarrhea, a lot of cramping and pain, because your guts don't know what to do with this disaccharide. A disaccharide is kind of two bundles of sugar linked together, and your body cannot absorb those in the same way that it can with one molecule of glucose, for example. So what our body likes to do is to get them into single molecules that can be easily absorbed. Sometimes what we don't know is whether there is an issue with the pancreas that then leads to less enzymes being produced, that then leads to this overgrowth of the bacteria, or is it the other way around, that the bacteria are there or the microbes are there in your small intestine and then they're stopping the production of the brush border enzymes. It's hard to know, but there's a bit of research where they basically took out the pancreas, or they kind of adjusted the power of the pancreas in, I think it was in pigs. It was definitely an animal study anyway, it wasn't people. And they found that increased the amount of bacteria that grew in the small intestine of the pig. So we don't have many human trials, but we do know that about 6 or 7% of people who have IBS diarrhea predominant symptoms potentially have some kind of impairment to their pancreatic enzyme production. I guess what I'm trying to say with all of this big, long introduction is that it could be quite a common thing that you have got some impairment to the production of enzymes, or your way that you're able to break down the food that you're getting, that then leads you to have undigestible products in your small intestine that then are fermented by bacteria, causing more bloating, causing diarrhea, causing faster transit time, and potentially cramps as well. So these things are very common in people who have IBS. Some of the symptoms of having pancreatic enzyme insufficiency, which means your pancreas isn't producing enough of these enzymes, might be that you're losing weight, that you have a lot of fat in your stool, so your poo is very greasy and you can see oil floating on the top of the toilet bowl, and you might have steatorrhea, which is like kind of frothy, greasy diarrhea, often yellowy, greeny even in colour, and that can be a very common sign of having insufficient breakdown of fats in your poo. Listen to episode 23 if you want more on dietary fats and fat breakdown and IBS because I recorded a whole episode on that. There is a way to test for pancreatic enzyme production by a stool test. They look for the amount of what's called pancreatic elastase in your stool. This can be done by your doctor, so the NHS do run these, as well as on private stool tests. If you're getting a private stool test, you should make sure that this is going to be tested because it's a good marker to see. And what they're looking for is anything less than 200 milligrams per gram. And that would indicate that, yes, you have an insufficiency of enzymes being produced. If your doctor does this test and then you are offered some medication to support this, the most common one given in the UK is called Creon, and it is just enzymes for breaking down fats, proteins and carbs. I once worked with a client who had been prescribed this by her doctor, but then told me, I don't want to take medication, I want to do it naturally. I think what people don't always realise is that the supplements that you can get are also digestive enzymes, pretty much the same as this medication. They might be in different quantities and the amount of enzyme per product is important, but this is a medication that you can get on the NHS, which helps you break down your food. But if you are looking for a supplement that contains digestive enzymes because you think this could be something that you want to look into, and you know you've got IBS, so as I always say, like if you haven't had a diagnosis of IBS, it's really important that you do go to your doctor. Don't just start making changes to your diet and start taking supplements if you don't really know what the problem is. But if you are looking for something, it's really helpful to know what your particular food triggers are. If you don't have any sense of what your food triggers are, then I do suggest following something like the low FODMAP diet process in order to identify your triggers. So one way of doing that would be to cut out all the FODMAP foods that are highly fermentable, then you slowly reintroduce them to see if there's a particular type of carbohydrate that is causing your problems. Once you know this, you can be a lot more targeted with your digestive enzymes, and actually you don't need to take them all if there's only one particular one that you're struggling with. Now, obviously this won't test you for fat malabsorption, for example, because the low FODMAP diet shouldn't really be altering the amount of fats that you're eating, and it wouldn't necessarily look at protein digestion. So this is why some people just say, I'm just going to try a digestive enzyme. But what I'm saying is you can be a bit more targeted if you know the particular types of carbohydrate that might be an issue for you. For example, there is a particular enzyme that breaks down galacto-oligosaccharides, so that's GOS in the FODMAP groupings. These are found in beans and pulses and some nuts as well. If you know that that kind of food is your problem, there is an enzyme that you can take just when you're having like a big lentil dal, or just when you're having a vegetarian chili with loads of kidney beans. This might be really helpful for you. And the enzyme is called alpha galactosidase. If you don't know and you're looking for a generic brand of digestive enzymes, I suggest you get one that includes alpha galactosidase because it does cover you off for the galacto-oligosaccharides. Then, for example, if you know you just have a problem with lactose, you can also get digestive enzymes that just contain lactase that are going to break down the sugars in your dairy products. Most digestive enzymes contain a range of different enzymes, so they'll have something that covers proteins, fats and starches, and that's probably a good place to start if you don't know what your particular issues are. There is a newish digestive enzyme that's been around for about a year called FODzyme that is particularly specific to FODMAP groups, so it covers off GOS, lactase and fructans, which tend to be the things that people react to the most. So this would include wheat, onions, garlic, beans and dairy. And if you think about those food groups, that's quite a lot of the common IBS triggers. What it doesn't do is it doesn't contain any polyols. So these are foods like avocado, sweet corn, cauliflower, mushrooms, blackberries, stone fruit. They are not necessarily covered by this enzyme, so it's not really for all the FODMAP groups. They also don't have any fat breakdown in there, so there's no lipase, and it's a powder that you sprinkle on your food. Now, the benefit to this is that it tends to work within 30 minutes, so it's very quickly absorbed, so you're eating the digestive enzyme with your food, and so it starts that breakdown in your stomach, and as soon as it hits the small intestine, it's breaking down those key FODMAP foods. And the theory is that they are already broken down when they hit the small intestine, so they shouldn't cause you too many problems, as these larger molecules will not be getting to the large intestine, causing you excessive gas and bloating. That is really common with other FODMAPs that go undigested. The other thing is that it doesn't include any fat breakdown, any protein digestion, and it's incredibly expensive compared to other products. So I'm just specifically calling them out, but just because I know that a lot of people ask about them, is it worth it? So those are my thoughts on that particular product. But there are lots of other digestive enzyme products out there that do contain the full spectrum, but won't necessarily be so fast acting. The one thing that is really important though is that you cannot open other digestive enzymes and put them on your food and start eating them with your meal. These ones are different, the FODzyme ones, because they don't contain any proteolytic enzymes. That's any pepsin or anything that's going to break down protein. The reason that your stomach acid has to activate pepsinogen into pepsin is to protect your stomach. Your stomach only activates that when you've got food on the go, because what you don't want to happen is that these protein degrading enzymes are hitting your stomach if you don't have enough mucus lining there, and if you haven't got a good healthy sort of digestion, if there's not food there already being broken down. The reason it's important is because if you've got gastritis, or if you've got a very sore stomach and you don't know why you might have gastritis and you don't know, that could be that you haven't got a sufficient mucus layer lining your stomach bag, and these proteolytic enzymes break down protein, so they can actually aggravate your stomach lining and make your symptoms much worse, and over time could lead to you getting a stomach ulcer. This is one of the reasons why I really do not suggest taking things that have got pepsin in them, because you don't know whether you're going to have a problem with your stomach lining. The only thing that happens when people do take them and they do find out that they've got an issue is that they get in a lot of pain, and I'd rather people avoid that. I don't think it's necessary to take additional pepsin. What we want to do is to try and get your own body producing that properly. Now, in terms of when you should take digestive enzymes, ideally you take them at the start of your meal. So take one bite of your food, take the digestive enzyme. You can wash it down with some liquid, some water. Don't worry about drinking. It's not going to invalidate your stomach acid. And eat the rest of your meal. The benefit of that is that it gets churned up with all your food in your stomach. So you're starting to activate that digestive process as quickly as possible. I know some people are told that they should have it after their meal. There's no harm in doing that, and it's better than not doing it at all, but it might be more effective if you take it at the beginning of a meal. The only other time I don't suggest taking a digestive enzyme is whilst you're doing any food reintroduction process. So if you've been on an elimination diet like the low FODMAP diet, then whilst you're doing the careful reintroductions, ideally you don't want to be taking a digestive aid that is helping you with this process. If it is the only thing keeping you going and you're really struggling, then yes, keep it in. However, ideally you want to try and stop the digestive enzyme to enable you to see what your own reaction is to these foods. Do you have an actual imbalance that's stopping you break down these foods? If you're looking at your long-term digestive capability, you want to know without the supplements what it's like when you have that food in your small intestine. As always, I have tried to keep it short. I try and keep these sessions to about 20 minutes, so I have rushed through quite a lot of information here. But I want to keep these Inside Knowledge podcast episodes succinct and full of information, which is why I don't have too much chat. But if you do have questions from about anything I've said, then feel free to drop me a line. It is info@goodnessme-nutrition.com. and I will get back to you. Or you can follow me and send me a DM on Instagram. I am goodnessme_nutrition there. Also, if you have any suggestions for future episodes, I've had a few requests recently and I will be getting around to going through all of those once I get through the plan for the next couple of months. But thank you very much for listening to this episode. Better digestion for everyone.